Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at what it looks like to have a Jupiter Maha Dasha. So this is a small excerpt from my course on Vedic Astrology for those of you who are curious of what these different lessons look like in your life as you're going through this particular period. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So now this takes us into our Jupiter Mahadasha, which is a 16-year period that follows that 18-year period of the Rahu Mahadasha. And in this case, you want to look at where is Sagittarius? What house does Sagittarius rule? You want to look at what sign is Jupiter placed in? And what is the Lord of that sign? Where is it positioned? You also, though, want to pay attention to Jupiter karmas. And the way that you find a Jupiter karma is you look to the sign that Jupiter is in. There are particular karmas attached to that sign. Because now that we're getting into the outer planets, now we are starting to get into laws and morals and principles where Jupiter and Saturn become about your karma in this world. Now, the theme of this particular Mahadasha period of Jupiter is all about the judgment of your actions. So you will be tested to see, are you following moral principles? And very appropriate as it comes after that Rahu period. And so what happens here is anything that you did correctly in that Rahu period, you're going to receive a lot of gains from that. Because remember that Jupiter is the most beneficial of all the planets. It gives us gains, right? But these gains can also be negative if you have done wrong in that Rahu period. So this is a period of judgment of your overall actions. And during this period, everything that is wrong for you tends to be removed also. So if you are in toxic relationships, those relationships will suddenly end. If you were in the wrong place, you might get fired. You might get into a situation where all of a sudden Jupiter is removing you from a situation that is not good for you. Also, any type of experiences in your life, all of this will fall apart if it is not serving your highest, greatest good. Jupiter will take it away. Also, during this period, there tends to be a huge focus on education, so you might want to learn more. There might be a main focus needed in your actual education. During this time, there can tend to be a huge focus on children as well. Also, a person could get married in this Mahadasha period because Jupiter is the significator of the husband. So that can happen as well. During this period, it's all about doing right. So if you are doing good deeds, you are going to get good results from this period. Jupiter is all about rewarding you for the good. Jupiter can also take you to foreign lands. You might be living in a foreign land, or you might just be traveling in a foreign land, or you might even be thinking or planning to go to a foreign place during a Jupiter Mahadasha, because Jupiter is the significator of travel. Jupiter also deals with your past karmas, because remember that Jupiter controls the 9th house, and the 5th house and the 9th house are Trikona houses that deal with your good karmas coming back to you. And so those karmas can be highlighted during this particular Mahadasha. But overall, this whole theme is a test of your overall character. Are you doing right? Are you following the moral path? All of this will be tested during a Jupiter Mahadasha. Now, if you have Jupiter positioned in a good place, it tends to give you good results. And typically speaking, Jupiter is always going to give you good results. Because remember that Jupiter is the most beneficial of all the planets. However, you can experience some frustrations during a Jupiter Maha Dasha depending on how it is positioned in your chart. If Jupiter is in a good position, you will tend to be in an optimistic spirit, right? This tends to be a very happy and successful time of life during a Jupiter Maha Dasha. There also tends to be a great interest in learning more. So again, this theme is all about education because Jupiter represents higher knowledge and wisdom. And so you might be very interested in learning more during this period. You might be seeking out a guru. You might be looking for greater understanding in your life on a spiritual level also, right? So this could be a great time for learning. And typically anyone who is seeking to learn something new during a Jupiter Mahadasha will get very good results. Now, Jupiter also tends to give you good medical advice. So if you have any kind of health disturbances, which can come about because of that Rahu Mahadasha period that came before. It also, though, can come about because of this Jupiter Mahadasha, because it's such a beneficial planet that you can experience overindulgence during this time, which can lead to health disturbances. However, Jupiter will correct it because Jupiter always gives us beneficial influences. Jupiter also is the significator of wealth as well, so you can see an increase in wealth, particularly if Jupiter is in good relationship with Venus, because Venus is actually the true significator of wealth. Jupiter is more of good fortune. Now, again, you can experience a new marriage at this time. You can experience marital bliss at this time, where you experience a lot of happiness and joy within your marriage if you weren't experiencing it previously. Again, Jupiter does not want you to suffer. So Jupiter is going to take away anything that isn't good, or it's going to reverse anything that can be reversed. You can also experience new children, whether you're adopting or you are having a birth during this time as well, because Jupiter is the teacher, right? He's the mentor, the father. He wants to care for the children also. But if you have a bad or debilitated Jupiter, this could also be a time where you could come into conflict with your elders. Again, Jupiter represents the teacher, the mentor. So there could be some disturbances, particularly if you are disrespectful towards your elders. This is a time where you want to respect your elders at all costs. It will give you the best results. During a Jupiter Mahadasha, there can also be confusion in terms of your plans. Again, there are these big ideas and these big visions and views of travel, with Jupiter being that big giant planet. This can sometimes give you too many ideas, which can confuse you in terms of your plans moving forward. So the future is typically looked at very closely during a Jupiter Mahadasha period because, again, Jupiter is about travel, it's about future plans, all of these things. And so you may have some visions of what you want to do with your future during a Jupiter Mahadasha. This is a strong place that people tend to focus on. Again, there can be illnesses brought upon by overindulgence, or you could have some illnesses previously from the disturbances of that Rahu Mahadasha period. But all of this will be corrected typically, where you will get good medical advice that will help you. There can sometimes be an unstable career life too, because Jupiter is more concerned with the good. And so if you are in a career position where it doesn't really serve your highest, greatest good, Jupiter can take it away, right? So you might be in a position where you're changing jobs, or you have to travel for a job, or you are having disturbances within your job, where Jupiter is kind of nudging you to move on to something that is better for you. You can also experience loss of wealth. Again, Jupiter has that large nature, that good nature, where you might feel more inclined to splurge and spend on things. And so you want to really control your indulgences and your impulses during this time as well. Jupiter can also create separation and divorce. Again, Jupiter is the agent of marriage. And if you are in an unhappy marriage that can't be fixed, Jupiter will immediately take that from you. Some of the remedies to make this Jupiter good are typically going to be fasting on Thursdays. Thursday is Jupiter Day. And also educating others. If you are a teacher, if you're an elder, if you're a guide, giving assistance to others can help as a remedy. Helping the youth, again, the youth are connected to Jupiter because Jupiter is a teacher. So he is concerned with teaching the children. So also helping children is a huge thing that can give you some good results during a Jupiter Maha Dasha period. The best time typically for a Jupiter Maha Dasha period is when you are really at all times in your life, but especially when you're older, because when you are younger and you're not as mature, there tends to be a lack of direction. But Jupiter's always going to give you results no matter what time of your life it is, because it is the most beneficial.